Fiji, you've just wrapped up a really interesting conversation around emissions in the LNG sector. And now, for those who are in the audience or those who weren't able to make it today, I mean, what's kind of that one big takeaway that you would hope people, walk out the door and remember this from that conversation?
Sure. So the one big takeaway that I would like to communicate and ensure that it's etched in people's mind is this fact that U.S. LNG is environmentally competitive compared to other supply sources. It's based on science and facts, not rhetoric or PR. So I hope people understand and get ingrained in their mind that U.S. LNG is quite clean.
Mm. And obviously, whenever you're on stage, you don't have time to necessarily touch on all the points you might like to. What's something that didn't get touched on, maybe in the conversation, that you'd like to talk a little bit more about?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the big focus that I try to do is bring science to public policy decisions, and quite often what happens that doesn't happen when policymakers build regulations and or solutions to regulations. So what's really important is using the EU methane regulations as an example. Mm-hmm. If we know what we know now, if we know how the science works across the supply chain, what are the emissions and where the profiles of emissions are, how commercial markets work, especially in complex networks like the U.S. system, where the importer does not have line of sight to the producer, how would you build a public policy that meets the intent of what the goals are, that is reduce methane, which most companies in the public sector support and would do it, but do it in a manner which is scientifically robust, commercially robust, and do it in a manner which is most cost effective and less impactful for all the stakeholders.
Well, you mentioned cost, and oftentimes emission abatement does cost money. And so, I guess, are buyers willing to pay for a lower emission LNG cargo?
So that's a great question. And so the U.S. there is a voluntary differentiated gas market. Mm-hmm. And in my prior employment, my old boss and I, we designed the first what we call responsible source gas when I was at Southwestern. However, the world has changed significantly since 2018 to now. Buyers would want to pay for gas that is actually measured and not estimated. It's verified, not self-endorsed. And that has been sort of the key criteria. However, the U.S. differentiated gas market did not really take off, and will it take off under the EU rules? It's TBD. We really do not know, because the rules as structured do not give an opportunity for market-based mechanisms. So some of the solutions that Cheniere and others have proposed lead towards market-based mechanisms. Now, will it be adopted? Will it be accepted? We don't know. And under regulatory scheme, customers will have to pay something. The cost will definitely not be borne by just one entity like the producer alone. Mm-hmm. It has to, if we talk about rational theories, the cost has to pass through. Now, how much is the cost? Are customers willing to pay for it? Can we bring efficiency into the market? It's all TBD, because the rules of such measures have not been in play. So in a voluntary market, it's bilateral, it's buyer beware, and it's whatever you decide between the two parties as what you considered differentiated or lower emitting. But under a regulatory environment, it might be different. What is that price going to be? we will know once the rules are implemented.
Yeah. Well, you touched on those EU methane regulations, and right now they're essentially not really compatible with U.S. LNG in the way that U.S. gas is measured from an upstream emissions perspective, if I'm understanding that correctly. And certainly feel free to correct me if that's a mischaracterization. But those are going to kick in 2027, I believe. And so what right now is being done in terms of finding some way? I mean, the EU is obviously emission sensitive and price sensitive, but needs the U.S. gas. So what's being done to find a way to compromise so that it works?
Sure. So just a clarification before I answer the question. The trouble with the EU rule as in complex systems like the U.S. is the fact that the importer who has to comply with the rule has to turn in the MRV data to the member states, has to get producer level data. For example, Cheniere, we deal with about 100 different counterparties to source our gas to Sabine and Corpus, our two liquefaction terminals. So for every Cheniere cargo, the eventual importer or our customer has to get that data. And the problem with that is confidentiality reasons, commercially sensitive reasons, we cannot divulge that data. The EU-based importer or the customer does not have a direct line of sight to the producer. They do not know where the gas is coming from. They cannot trace it. So that is indeed the complexity of the issue. Now, how will this get resolved? That is maybe $1 billion question, right? which is the issue that is presented in front of the Commission and the member states. Cheniere's proposed a solution called trace and aggregate. Others have also presented solutions, from market-based book and claim to the NGOs have proposed something called trace and claim. End of the day, all three proposals or other proposals that I'm not aware would need an interpretation or guidance issued by the Commission, or the Commission has to think about simplifying the rules to meet market realities. So we just do not know how things are going to shape up. But end of the day, there needs to be a compromise in understanding, because the EU needs US LNG and US LNG needs the EU. So there is definitely a commercial, geostrategic reasons to get these things resolved. Again, we are committed to meeting the intent of the rule. The rule as written, the structure of the rule is the challenge.
Yeah, so you're committed to delivering that lower emissions LNG. It's just got to be required in a way that can be met in the U.S. system.
Yes.
And so, I mean, it's always, till now it's been seen perhaps, or at least the rhetoric around it is maybe that, U.S. LNG might be disadvantaged from an emissions perspective if the EU is keeping this, this regulation in place. But if a compromise is reached, is there a scenario where the U.S. Is actually advantaged from an emissions perspective relative to other sources of supply?
Yeah. So you're right. The current structure supports simple supply chains like Qatar over U.S. But as our science and our research has shown, the U.S. is in a very good shape in terms of emission profiles, and also because of the fact that we have the technical experience and the capacity in implementing these monitoring technologies and measurement technologies. We have robust regulations in the U.S. that apply to the supply chain, and so therefore we're what I coined the term environmentally competitive. We are very environmentally competitive, and add that to the security of supply that we have as an advantage relative to others, we indeed will be competitive very, very well and meet the EU demands. And also, let's not forget the Asian demand also, in a manner that is responsible, clean, and secure.
Mm-hmm. Well, Fiji, thank you so much for joining us here on the Debrief, and I hope we get to speak again at the summit next year.
Enjoyed it. Thank you.
Excellent.